quick bread method. We're gonna do the muffin method. But this time we're gonna make some blueberry muffins. So we're gonna go ahead and first take our dry ingredients like I did earlier. So this is a repeat of the pancakes, but this time we're making muffins. So I've got my dry ingredients in one, okay? And we're gonna give that a little whisk. I could sift it, but whisking it like this works just fine too. The big thing that I tell people is when you're making this, if you have your dry in one bowl and your liquid in another, which is what we're gonna do in this one, if you sift your dry ingredients directly over your wet ingredients, part of those dry ingredients start to liquefy a little bit and get clumpy, and then you end up with some issues there. So I would say, as long as you're mixing directly while you're doing it, you could sift. You could sift directly over the wet, but I wouldn't advise it. So I say sift separately and then put into your wet ingredients. We have our egg, we have our oil, we have our buttermilk, and in this case there's buttermilk in here because, well, I've got a little bit of lemon zest, which is going to be an acid. So we're going to whisk this together. And once that's whisked together, and you got a nice emulsion, you'll notice that now has this nice thick emulsion to it. We're going to put the whisk aside, okay? And so from here on out, we're going to be using just our spatula and not the whisk. So this is a basic, straightforward muffin batter recipe, and I'm gonna stop right about there. I don't want to go any further. And the reason why I want to do that, I want to take a moment to explain to you. So at this point, I can take this muffin batter and put it aside in the refrigerator if I wanted to. So for a production facility, I can take that batter out every morning for the next 3 mornings, and I can add a little bit of blueberries that have been floured. I can add some chocolate chips. I could add some dry craisins. I could add a little bit of lemon extract and poppy seed. So I don't have to make 4 different kinds of batters. I can make one, a basic batter, and then separate it up as I need to. But I don't want to overmix it, because if you overmix this, once again, it's kind of like we did with the pancakes. It's going to cause tunneling. So just undermix it a little bit and wait, okay? We've got some frozen blueberries here. Nice. We're going to take this entire batter and we're going to put some blueberries into it. But here's the thing. If you're going to put blueberries in there, you need to put a little flour on them. I usually put a little flour on top. I'll take the container and give them a little shake. And what that does is it coats the blueberries in a little bit of flour, allowing them to not fall through as easily when you do the batter. So we're going to take some blueberries and sprinkle it in. Some people like a lot, some people like a little. I like kind of be in the middle, because if it's too much, you end up with a very soggy bottom. All the blueberries they still kind of progress towards the bottom regardless. But you end up with too much blueberry and not enough structure to hold the muffin together. So we've got our batter here that is partially mixed together, and I'm going to do a folding motion. You'll notice my arm going up and around, pulling through the middle. And once they're in, we're going to stop right there. Because if I keep going, what we're going to end up with is what I refer to as the Smurf muffins. No one wants that blue muffin thing in the middle. It's a little awkward and looks weird. So you can see just a little bit of that there. All right? So now we're going to go ahead and take our portion scoop. And we're going to get a nice, healthy scoop. We're going to be placing this directly into a muffin cup. This batch should make between 4 and 6 for the one that you have that you're practicing at home. You can obviously see that on your recipe packet I wrote 13. That was for a full-size batch. It also depends on what size. I think part of our society right now is they're very used to those really big muffins. And in this case, we're doing a smaller muffin. It's definitely something that you can adjust. All right, we're going to take that last little bit of the batter. And we're gonna top these with our streusel that we have made up. And as you can see, I didn't use all the blueberries, didn't need to. We're gonna take our streusel and we're gonna put a nice, and when I say healthy, a nice healthy bit on top of each one. And we'll go over to the oven and we'll talk a little bit about ovens, how they work, and what to expect from your ovens, especially if you're at home, and talk about some of those. So we'll head over to the oven. All right, so we have a standard deck oven here, which is typical in the industry. We have a deck oven, and then we have a convection oven. And of course, you'll run into those that have what's called a super convection oven. This Rationale is a super convection oven. I can probably start these muffins at about 350 degrees in the super convection oven, and they'll be fine. With a deck oven or a home oven or a conventional, what I call, I usually would start these muffins roughly around 400, and you're like, wow, 400 degrees for a muffin seems a little hot. What you have to realize is when you open this door up, a lot of that heat comes out, and when you've lost some of that heat, it can be an issue. Now, it's very, very important that the oven be super hot when it first goes in, because there's a thing called oven spring. Oven spring really does help quick bread items out quite a bit. When it first goes in, the cold product has a lot of potential for steam. And then of course the double acting baking powder, which acts once when it hits liquid and a second time when it hits the heat. It has the potential, if the right amount of heat is in there, and I typically use a high heat, it will actually cause it to react even faster. And we call this the oven spring. The oven spring is not that spring up there on the oven door that helps you open the door. Oven spring, or jump, is referring to the product actually jumping off the deck or off the pan. And that's in direct correlation to the amount of heat that's in the oven. So I highly suggest you start with a very hot oven, because when you open your door, you're gonna lose quite a bit of heat. So these are gonna be in the oven for about 15 to 17 minutes, and we're gonna check and see what our doneness is. All right, so after about 17 minutes, if you come in and check, and you'll see these are absolutely gorgeous. How can you tell they're done? So you can use the stick method, and we've all seen that before. But what I implore you to do is this. You'll notice that when I push, it bounces back. That's what we're looking for, is that bounce, okay? So also the next thing to check in is gonna be the inside. So we're gonna go ahead and take this muffin and just tear and see. You'll notice that the blueberry is actually stalled throughout the certain parts, and there's no tunneling here. It's nice, it's tender, got a nice smell to it, the citrus comes through, but you can see how the streusel gives that nice effect, and that's what we're looking for, okay? So when you're done making these at home, go ahead and cut them out, take your own video of those, and show us what you got.